Hey there, how's everybody doing? A lot of you have asked for a basic wormhole tutorial, so here I am in my trusty prospect warp into a wormhole. This guide will be geared towards those who like to take day trips into wormhole to mine or harvest some gas, so that's why I'm in a prospect as opposed to a dedicated exploration ship. I will cover the basics of what's needed to survive just a short trip into the wormhole. If you've never been to a wormhole before, I hope to provide you with enough information for successful mining or gas harvesting up, whatever it is you choose to do. This is a wormhole that I found in HiSec. It's a K162, which is a designation for the wormhole exit. That doesn't tell us much, but we can look at the info tab. From there we can see that the wormhole is leading to unknown parts of space. That's exactly what we're looking for. So let's jump in and see what's inside. As you jump into the wormhole, it's a good idea to update your clone. You wouldn't want to lose some skill points just in case you get potted. Based on the info and just the color of the wormhole itself, we can see that ships up to the capital size will be able to fit through it. And as I jump in, there were two mobile warp disruptors right there at the wormhole. Right away, this is a telltale sign that the wormhole is active. It is very rarely that I've seen this before, but whoever was living in this wormhole was definitely trying to hound down people coming from HiSec. They definitely did not position the warp bubbles well enough because I was not affected by them. But there could have been somebody cloaked up nearby, so did not want to linger around. My first tip is to always bookmark the wormhole that you came in from. This just saves you the hassle of trying to scan down your exit when you're trying to leave. Once you're done bookmarking, just warp to any planet at range. And don't forget to cloak up. You should never warp anywhere at zero. Always leave some space so that you will not be decloaked by accident and you'll be able to see what's going on in the area. As you're warping through the system, keep checking your directional scanner for any signs of ships. The ships that you see here may be active players, or they could simply be ships left at the player-owned star bases. Keep using the D-scan frequently to see if ships disappear or appear. That would mean that somebody is active at this wormhole. Based on the nebula, this is a Class 5 system, so it's likely very popular. Let's take a look at the anomalies and cosmic signatures. Most of the anomalies are combat sites with just one ore site. This site is relatively close, within 6 astronomical units, meaning that I can see what's going on in it using my D-scan. So I'm going to switch to a different overview to check for sleeper wrecks. That would indicate that somebody was in the site destroying sleepers not too long ago. But there was nothing interesting except a mobile depot. So it could be that somebody's trying to refit in a wormhole and has cloaked up. Or the mobile depot could simply be at the POS. But as far as I can see right now, there's nobody at the ore site, unless they're cloaked up. Let me show you how I set up my overview to use with the D-scan. I have multiple tabs set up for different purposes so that my D-scan will not get crowded with extra information. The Hostiles tab is the one that I use most frequently. This is the one that shows me the ships in the area. It doesn't tell me which ones are active ships, so you have to assume everything you see could be a potential threat. Turns out I had the expedition frigate unchecked by accident. Not that they could be a major threat, but it's still a good idea to see if they're flying around. Also, it's a good idea to double check your overview settings to see if you miss something like this. The other thing that I include in my overview are the NPCs. I check just the pirate NPCs to see the sleepers in the wormhole or the rats in the nullsec and lowsec. The rest of the options are useless for me personally. One of the most crucial items that may be missed by some players are the scanner probes. These are very important to include to see if somebody's trying to scan down for you or the site that you're in. The next tab I call Loot. It includes random things that are of some interest. The most important ones in my opinion are the cargo containers and wrecks. Those tell me right away if somebody was active in the system not too long ago. The rest of the items are up to you. It's a good idea to have some control towers to see if there are star bases in the system, but almost always every wormhole will have at least a few. Just don't get too crazy crowding the overview with information that you might not actually need. Keep it to the bare basics that you will need to survive. So let's check out this ore site to see what's inside. Always warp at distance and keep on checking the D-scan as you travel. As I got closer to the ore site, a long list of ships have appeared on the D-scan. All of them had symbols before their name, which is a common practice for wormhole corporations. This makes it easier for them to identify their own ships. If you're into mining, you can set up your overview to display only the ore that you need. There was no mercoxide at this site, but typically a Class 5 wormhole will have some mercoxide deposits, just not at the same levels that you will find in nullsec. With all of the ships in the D-scan, this is far from an ideal place to start mining, especially since anybody can warp to the ore site without having to scan it down first. So let's set up a safe spot and start scanning down all of those cosmic anomalies. To do that, just warp to any planet, and while you're in warp, just create a bookmark. Warp back to your safe spot, and you will have to decloak in order to reload and deploy your scanner probes. That's a bit of a vulnerable time because people will be able to see you on D-scan. But regardless, if they're smart, they'll be able to see your scanner probes as you're scanning the wormhole. This wormhole seemed way too active for my liking, so I decided to find another one that's a little bit more quiet. One of the wormholes I found, I could see was leading to a Class 1 system. That's not one of the most desirable systems, considering lack of good gas and ore sites inside, but it'll definitely be on the quieter side. Larger wormhole corporations are not typically interested in settling in lower class wormhole systems. Once again, do not forget to bookmark the wormhole that you have just jumped through. It's good to have a clear exit path back into the high sec. As you can see, there's plenty of cosmic anomalies available to warp to, and some cosmic signatures available for scanning down. That's the first sign that there's not that much activity within this wormhole. Typically, wormhole corporations will be farming all over the available sites, and they will not be respawning as quickly, leading to less sites being available. I don't typically do this when I go on day trips to the wormhole, but here's one way you can find out if the corporation within it is active. Right now I'm located in the middle of the system, and my directional scanner did not show any control towers. So if there are any star bases, they will likely be located at the planets on the periphery, or I should say at the moons of one of the planets. Luckily there was only 2 moons for each of the planets on the distant orbit, so it wasn't that tough to find the POS at one of them. Just make sure if you do this to warp to the moon as far away as possible, and stay cloaked if you have a cloaking device. The reason for this is that if the POS is active and it has defenses, then they will fire on you in no time. Just one volley will be enough to destroy a frigate-sized ship. As I expected, the POS that I found had no shield up. That means that there was no fuel left in the control tower and the whole starbase is offline. Because I saw no ships on the D-scan as I was warping around, I really expected the starbases to be offline, if there were any to begin with. And that was the case with the 2 starbases in the system. Both of them were offline and were belonging to a small wormhole corporation that likely simply left them here. An abandoned wormhole is much safer to harvest gas or mine rocks. Knowing that there is no active wormhole corporations helps, but that doesn't mean that there is no other ships around. So you still have to remain very vigilant and keep checking your D-scan. But now it's much safer to start harvesting resources. In contrast, when I went back to the previous wormhole, I found many starbases that were active. I used the combat scanner probes to find all of those ships that were popping up on D-scan. The active POS will have a visible shield around it, and typically you'll see ships inside of it as well. This particular POS even had mobile warp disruptors. Although I couldn't find any active players in the system, that doesn't mean that they couldn't log on at any point in time. But this is typically what an active POS will look like. Coming back to our quiet wormhole, one thing to keep in mind when you start mining on gas harvesting is that as soon as you warp to a site, a countdown timer has begun, and typically after about 20 minutes, sleeper ships will appear. The timer actually starts not when you appear at the site, but as soon as you click Warp 2. Even if you cancel Warp, the sleepers will still show up after about 20 minutes. So if you warp to a site and see that the sleepers are already there, that means that somebody has already tried to warp here. That's a good sign that somebody may be active in the system. Or it could be that somebody's already cloaked up at the site, waiting for unsuspecting ships to show up. In any case, if you're using the Prospect frigate, you won't be able to tank the sleepers anyways, so you would have to find a different site to harvest your resources. In the case of this particular gas cloud, I warped to it first and then warped out and came back 10 minutes later to start harvesting again. The sleepers showed up about 10 minutes later, and I had to warp out with whatever I have harvested so far. And once I was done, I started making my way back to the high sec through the wormholes. The exit to high sec still had warp bubbles, so staying cloaked I had to slowly make my way to the wormhole. There were no other ships and nobody decloaked me, so I was able to get to high sec with no problem. There are a couple of more things that are useful to know about wormholes. One of them is wormhole polarity. What it means is that you can't jump through the same wormhole twice within 5 minutes. So you gotta be careful when you're jumping in and out of the same wormhole. You will get a pop-up that will say that the wormhole is unstable and tell you the remaining amount of time you have to wait to jump. But you can still jump through any other wormholes within the system. This is done to prevent other people from collapsing wormholes on purpose by jumping in and out of them. And also because the wormhole is not a Stargate, the aggression mechanics for it are different as well. You can attack someone and still be able to jump through the wormhole. If somebody hostile is chasing you down, don't think that a wormhole will stop them. They can keep on jumping without any problems. And although I did not mention this at the beginning, and I think it's a little self-explanatory, but you should never talk in local. You should never announce your presence to everybody else in the system. When it comes to low and nullsec, people easily know who's in the system. But for the wormholes, there's no way to tell unless somebody starts talking. In conclusion, here's the recap of the important points. First and foremost, make sure you keep on using your D-scan at all times. Set up your overview for different tabs looking at ships and structures. And keep monitoring the ships around you to see if they're warping in and out. Do not forget to include scanner probes to your overview. If you see scanner probes, then it means you might have some competition for the gas sites. But if combat scanner probes pop in on a D-scan, that means somebody's looking for a ship, so you better stay cloaked. Don't forget to bookmark your exit wormholes. These bookmarks will provide a fast and easy exit path back into the high sec where you came from. Don't warp to 0 to any planet, moon or cosmic anomaly. Only warp to 0 if you know exactly what you're warping into. Keep in mind that ore sites are cosmic anomalies and anybody can warp to them, but gas sites are cosmic signatures that have to be scanned down, so typically gas sites will be safer. Sleeper ships will spawn at the ore and gas sites. The countdown timer starts right when somebody warps to the site. The sleepers will show up about 20 minutes later. Typically, lack of ships on the D-scan will mean that there is no active corporation within the wormhole, but there could always be somebody cloaked up at all times. If you spot warp bubbles or online player-operated star bases, that means that somebody may be active within the system right now. At the very least, they have been active not too long ago. Try to avoid very crowded wormhole systems. That will make survival much easier. Thank you very much for watching. I hope you found this guide useful. If you have any questions, please feel free to comment on this video. And don't forget to subscribe if you'd like to see more videos like this one. You can also check out my other wormhole related videos, such as Ninja Gas Harvesting with Venture and using Prospect with Mobile Depot. Safe flying out there!